You ever have one of those days where it feels like your body's internal engine is just stuck in high gear? I mean, you're burning through fuel, everything's racing, but you just can't find that off switch. Well, that, in a nutshell, is what it can feel like to have hyperthyroidism. So today, let's pop the hood on that engine, figure out why it's stuck in overdrive, and see what it takes to get it back to a nice, smooth idle.
It's such a strange paradox, right? Feeling completely wired, just buzzing with this nervous, jittery energy, but at the same time, you're just exhausted. It makes no sense. This really confusing and frustrating combination. Well, it's one of the classic signs that your thyroid might be working way too hard. And yeah, it definitely doesn't stop there. Just imagine this. You're losing weight, but you're eating more than ever. Your heart feels like it's running a marathon even when you're just sitting on the couch. You're feeling anxious, irritable, always hot, and on top of all that, your muscles feel weak. Now, these aren't just random malfunctions. They're all symptoms of a single system that's running totally out of control, and they all point back to one central cause.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the problem, we need to meet the gland that's in charge of the whole show, the body's master regulator of metabolism, the thyroid gland.
It really doesn't look like much, you know? It's just this small, butterfly-shaped gland right in the front of your neck. But don't let its size fool you. This little thing is the metabolic thermostat for your entire body. It literally dictates the speed of just about everything, from your heart rate to how fast you're burning calories.
So how exactly does this thermostat work? Well, it's actually this beautiful feedback loop. It starts in your brain, which sends a signal. That signal tells your pituitary gland to release something called thyroid-stimulating hormone. We just call it TSH. TSH then travels down and tells your thyroid, hey, release your hormones. Those are T4 and T3. And then once the levels of those hormones get high enough, they send a message back to the brain telling it to, cool it. The whole system powers down. It's a perfectly balanced system. That is, when it's working correctly. But what happens when that perfectly balanced system breaks down? Well, that's when you get an engine stuck in overdrive. This is hyperthyroidism.
Yeah, at its absolute core, hyperthyroidism is just a state of excess. Your thyroid gland basically ignores the brain's slow down signals and just keeps pumping out those T4 and T3 hormones. It floods your body with them, pushing your metabolism into this frantic, hyperactive state.
But why? Why does this elegant system suddenly fail? What actually causes the thyroid to go rogue like this? All right, let's unmask the primary culprits.
So, while there are a few potential causes, it turns out one is responsible for the vast majority of cases. I mean, a staggering 80% are caused by an autoimmune condition called Graves' disease. It is absolutely the dominant player here, by a huge margin.
So what exactly is Graves' disease? The best way to think about it is like a case of mistaken identity. See, it's an autoimmune disorder where your own immune system gets confused and creates these antibodies that perfectly mimic TSH. Remember, that's the hormone that tells the thyroid to go. So these imposter antibodies lock onto the thyroid and, well, they essentially jam the accelerator pedal straight to the floor, forcing it to overproduce hormones nonstop.
And here's something really interesting. For reasons we don't fully understand yet, there's this striking gender disparity. Women are 5 to 10 times more likely than men to develop hyperthyroidism, and that's especially true for Graves' disease.
Now, this flood of excess hormone, it doesn't just affect one little thing. Oh no, it sets off a body-wide cascade, like a domino effect that ends up impacting nearly every single system you have.
And the effects really are systemic. I mean, your heart starts to race, which can lead to arrhythmias. Your nervous system goes on high alert, causing things like fine tremors and that constant feeling of anxiety. Your muscles get weaker, your bones can actually thin out, and even your digestive system speeds up. And specifically with Graves' disease, it can cause some very distinct eye-related issues.
And this is a really crucial point. Up to half, 50%, of all people with Graves' disease will experience some form of what's called thyroid eye disease. It's the exact same autoimmune attack, but this time it's targeting the tissues behind the eyes. And that's what causes that characteristic bulging appearance, pain, and, in really severe cases, even vision problems.
Okay, so with all of these systemic effects going on, how do we stop the cascade? How do we restore the body's natural balance? Well, it all starts with a diagnosis. And from there, it leads to a few key treatment options.
And the good news is the first step is actually incredibly simple and super effective.
It's a blood test that measures your TSH. That's the single most sensitive marker. And it makes perfect sense, right? Remember that feedback loop we talked about? If the thyroid is overproducing all on its own, the brain is going to stop sending TSH signals. So if your TSH level comes back very low or totally suppressed, that is a huge red flag for hyperthyroidism.
All right, so once you've got a diagnosis, the first line of defense is usually medication designed to block the thyroid from making any new hormones. There are two main players here. The first is methimazole, and that's the go-to for most people. It's just once a day, and it has a lower risk of serious side effects. The other one, PTU, is generally reserved for really specific situations, like during the first trimester of pregnancy, or for a rare but very severe complication called a thyroid storm.
But the goal with either drug is exactly the same. Block the thyroid's hormone factory so the body can finally calm down. And for about half the people who stick with it for a year or two, this treatment can actually lead to a lasting remission, which is fantastic.
But what if the medication doesn't lead to remission? Well, for a more permanent solution, there's something called radioiodine therapy. And it sounds scarier than it is. You just take a single pill. Now, because the thyroid absolutely loves iodine, it just sucks all of it right up. The radiation then safely and very precisely destroys the overactive thyroid cells, and this offers a definitive cure in over 90% of cases. It's incredibly effective.
And the final permanent option is surgery. A thyroidectomy, which is just the surgical removal of the gland, is usually reserved for specific cases, like if the thyroid has gotten so large it's causing other problems, or if a patient just can't tolerate the other treatments for whatever reason.
All right, we've covered the problem and we've covered the solutions. Now, to really cement our understanding of what it means to be hyper or too fast, it really helps to look at its mirror opposite, hypo or too slow.
Think about it this way. If hyperthyroidism is your engine running way too fast, hypothyroidism is that same engine running way too slow. Everything just becomes a mirror image. The weight loss flips to weight gain, a racing heart becomes a slow one, and that feeling of intense anxiety is replaced by deep fatigue and even depression.
And this leads to the ultimate irony of the whole treatment process. The goal is always to restore balance. But when you use a permanent fix, like radioactive iodine or surgery to stop the too fast, you almost always end up in a too slow state, hypothyroidism. So what does that mean? It means most people will then need to take a simple daily pill to replace the thyroid hormone their body no longer makes. And that's what finally restores that perfect balance for life.
So we'll leave you with this thought to chew on. Knowing just how vital this little thermostat is for your body's entire sense of balance, what small changes could you make to help support its long-term health? Things from nutrition to stress management that might help keep it running smoothly for years to come.